Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where in the world you are. This is Reaction to Response, an opportunity to hear from thought leaders who are helping us shift from fear-based reactions to care and compassion-based responses. We were birthed through the Charter of Compassion International Women and Girls sector, and the Charter of Compassion is host to 1,800 partners, making up over 400 cities of compassion in 53 countries, divided into 12 sectors. And you can learn more about us at the charterforcompassion.org. Before we get into today's call, I'm going to just put up on the screen the information for our after party, which if you're watching the recorded version, unfortunately you won't be able to join us. But for those of you who are here, you can go ahead and write down the information as we go over a bit of housekeeping. First, this call is being recorded. Second, if you have any technological issues, you can go to zoom.us. And then, of course, if you have any questions or comments for Natalie or any other feedback you'd like to share during the call, you can type your questions or comments in the chat box or hover on the bottom of the screen for the Q&A to pop up. Also would like to thank the people who are working behind the scenes: Sandy Hart, Brianna Lathorpe, Susan DeGaio, and Betsy Spano. As most of you know, the Women and Girls aims to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which are now on your screen. And of these goals, this call in particular about awakening your voice touches on every single one of the goals, because when you're able to speak your voice and are empowered to use your voice, you have the freedom to speak out and speak on behalf of each of the goals to help progress us forward. Today's guest, Natalie Pace, is going to be speaking with us in particular about blogging and getting your voice from your heart out into the world. And she's also going to discuss when you hit life challenges, how to turn them into positive experience and really draw from them and get your voice and experiences out in the world. So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about our guest, Natalie Pace, who is the co-creator of the Earth Gratitude Project. She's the best-selling author and teacher of The Gratitude Game, The ABCs of Money, and Put Your Money Where Your Heart Is. She's also a blogger on Medium, Blog Talk Radio, and Huffington Post. You can learn more about her on her website, which is nataliepace.com. And I think that's it. Also, we would like to say a special thanks to Heartworks, who's a generous sponsor of this webinar. And one last thing before I welcome you officially, Natalie, is that today's talk is going to be a continuation of where we started our conversation on July 5th. So with that, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Natalie.
Thank you so much. Without realizing it. So it's not an extra bill. And that's where a lot of people get it wrong, or they think, oh, I got to pay off debt before I can start my IRA or my 401k. That's not at all the way that rich people think about money. Mm-hmm. And you are making the tax man and the debt collector and the bill collector and the utility company and the gas station and the landlord and the health insurance salesman and the life insurance salesman rich at your own expense. And there are smarter ways. If I had done the conventional wisdom, because the conventional wisdom is if life isn't adding up for you, that you need to cut out, you're overspending, like you're buying too many shoes or too much avocado toast or too many cafe lattes. And that is not the problem. The problem is today's world doesn't add up in the way that it did 20 or 30 years ago. And we have to have better choices and better solutions. Those are not found in the mainstream dialogue or conventional wisdom that was written 20 or 30 years ago when the world was different than it is today. So that's why I have 3 best-selling books. And I'm not just saying this as a pitch for those books. I really don't make enough on them. Authors usually don't make a lot of money on their books unless, of course, you're J.K. Rowling and you can turn them into films. But, I do have 3 books. And the most recent one is a chapter a day to help you start on this journey. So I would just encourage you to challenge yourself to do the gratitude game. It is 21 days to a healthier, wealthier, more beautiful you. And it is definitely, it's just full of the strategies that I use. I was in the same situation. in 1998. I was in the same situation. So my journey out of desperate and divorced and struggling to survive into finding my voice, into having my voice on Forbes and then on Huffington Post and on Thrive Global, and founding a partnership that includes the Prince of Wales and the Dalai Lama and Elon Musk and Deepak Chopra contributing their wisdom to the project, and again, them contributing it, not just, us grabbing it. Like, they are supportive of this project. My journey began at that moment, and it was not, cutting out cafe lattes, I can guarantee you that, or avocado toast or fun, all of which I'd already cut out. I had cut out everything, even ice cream. I talked about it. I would just be screaming at the television screen or at the book, I'm sorry, I can't cut out cafe lattes. I don't even eat ice cream. Life is not adding up here, and your solutions are not helping. So I had to live my way into the answer.
Wow.
And once I did, I had a lot of other women that wanted me to share what I know, and that's why I ended up founding the Women's Investment Network and writing 3 books.
It's so important because, I think so many people, if they're just trying to either get by or maybe start a new initiative or something like that, they feel like they can't compete and function in this old paradigm of, to your point, of financial well-being, originally from 20, 30 or even more years ago. And so it's when you have that feeling, you feel guilty, you feel ashamed, you feel a failure, all of these negative voices. And so I think your point about part of finding your voice is to sort of figure out a way to say, okay, that's the old way, and now we're in the process of birthing something new, which I didn't mention this earlier in the call because of all of our technical challenges going on this side. But one of the things that when you have your full voice, you're also able to sustain the 17 UN sustainability goals. You're able to affect all of the different areas of society that we're trying to elevate because you have a voice, you have a power. And that's just so important. And then when we switch from the individual to the collective, one of the things that you really spoke to my heart when we first spoke about this was you said that you can't go from nothing and being an individual or let me rephrase it. In order to succeed, you need to build partnerships and work in collaboration. And you've just illustrated that in your own personal life with collaborating with a friend, another single mom. And it sounds like you built a beautiful partnership that probably elevated you both and everyone that you came in contact with. So it
was a good launch pad. It was a very good launch pad, definitely. And, the one thing that I want to really stress here too, and then I have 5 tips about how to go from what I did, my 5 tips of how to get there. So I definitely want to do that. But before we do that, what I want to say is this, you don't have to solve everything in your life and then start having a voice. You have a voice now. But what I'm telling you is that as you start moving towards feeling more empowered in your foundation life, then that voice will be able to be something that you'll have greater confidence in. So I would say that right now you do have a voice. Right now your voice is powerful. Right now your presence is powerful. Anytime you're in a room, you can be the example of compassion anytime. And don't underestimate how valuable that is. I've heard so many times where people say sometimes, this is a quote that Christians use, but I think that it can be definitely applicable to Charter for Compassion, and that is sometimes you're the only Bible people will read. So sometimes you're the only Charter for Compassion people will ever know. So if you carry that with you, no matter where you go, ordering a burrito at Chipotle, to meeting with kings and queens, whatever it is that you want to do, if you just know, hey, I'm going to be the voice in the room. I'm going to be the expressed compassion in the room. Every thought I have, every moment I do, every time someone approaches me, I'm going to be the expression of compassion. You can do that right here and right now. Gaining the larger voice, getting those big partnerships, Forbes, Huffington Post, Earth Gratitude, that sort of thing, that can be in your future. And you have to it's just like anything in life. You can't just go up to the ticket counter and say, I want to go on vacation, because they'll say, well, where do you want to go, right? So you have to kind of have an idea of where your destination is. And if your destination is, Huffington Post, Forbes, creating or becoming a louder, a stronger presence in the Charter for Compassion or Earth Gratitude Project, whatever it is, you really have that vision and you take steps to get there. And I'm saying, one of those steps is going to be making sure that you are empowered so that you don't have to worry about struggling to survive. Like, I always think that charitable giving is 10% of your money, but it's also 10% of your time. So, if you think about an 8-hour day that you're going to be spending doing work, you might think about 2.4 hours per day that you're going to be spending at minimum on your passion project. What is it how are you going to cultivate that voice? And usually, like anything else, and then I want you to pull me back into your whatever it is you want to say. But like anything else, it's not just about meditating and visualization. It's about action. You cannot become, I'm a classically trained pianist. You cannot go from plunkety plunkety plunk, ear noise that everybody's like, oh, to, like playing Handel and Handel's Messiah overnight just by visualizing it. Of course, visualizing it helps, but you really have to get in there and practice it. So when you're thinking about developing your voice, it's not just about developing your voice and reading it, although definitely has to be that. You should be studying the masters. You should be, listening to their wisdom, but it has to be in action. You have to practice it. So it can't be 2.4 hours per day just reading, or meditating, although I think that should be a piece of it.
Well, this is actually on track, because what I was thinking about when you were saying this was like, okay, so you just want to get out in the world. You feel you have something passionate to say or to share, and then you try to do a baby step, and the universe isn't necessarily fully saying, oh, you took a baby step, here, let's enter you into the marathon now, right? So instead, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, and the universe isn't giving back to me, and you're getting all of these negative messages maybe that keep you in fear, or old childhood patterning or something.
Oh, I love this. Thank you. I'll give you an example. So I
Great.
have a girlfriend, and she's always trying to lose weight, right? She's always trying to lose weight. And so, what she would do is, like, she'd start on this diet, and then she'd decided that she wants to start exercising. And one day she just walked out of her house. She was going on, I think it was her first walk, seriously. Like, she's going to start every day trekking down the road at least 3 miles, right? And she sees a skateboard next to this house right next to her, and she thinks, oh, I'll just jump on that skateboard and I'll be just fine. So she jumped on the skateboard. She actually gets on it very gingerly. It wasn't even like jumping on, like trying to pretend. And the first thing that happened was she twisted her knee.
Oh.
So what I mean to say is that, and I always find that too, when I'm trying to change my life, it's not at all like the universe rushes in and supports you. What happens first, before the universe rushes in and supports you, is that your lizard brain says, I want this to stay exactly where we are. I'm afraid of the unknown. I'm afraid of moving in a different direction. So a lot of times what you might feel when you're first starting something is not only not support, you might feel sabotage, but you have to know that if you are positive, the direction you're heading in is right, that those things that are sabotaging you are your lizard brain trying to keep you in the status quo, trying to keep you from growing, rather than that. So, as long as you know that you're living in the light, as long as you know that you're following wisdom of a true master, not, a snake oil salesman, and as long as you're committed to the process and learning and plunking and playing bad notes in the beginning so that you can become a classical pianist, not jumping on the skateboard the first walk you take, like not expecting yourself to do that, not self-sabotaging. So, that's a big piece of it. And again, it's almost like that the phrase, it's not in the Bible, God helps those who help themselves. Like, you really have to show the universe that you're going to become a physical, mental, emotional embodiment of that which that you are desiring to manifest. And as you start perfecting that in yourself, you will see that the universe rushes in to support it. And that, as a matter of fact, kind of ties in. I do want to just give an overview of those 5 steps that I took from divorced and desperate to dream come true. So first of all, step 1, if you want to fly, you have to lighten your load. Step 2, how do you find your unique voice? For me, charity is the best networking, because when you are like, so for instance, 2.4 hours per day would be 10% of a 24-hour day. So you could think about meditating, you could think about prayer, and you could think about studying the masters, but then you're still going to have some time, at least hopefully an hour a day, that you could devote to some particular charity. Those are people that are soul aligned with you, and those are the people that are going to become your support network. So they're natural, they have a natural alliance with you. And as you start getting more and more involved, then you will find that they become more and more, quote unquote, on your team. Number 3 is education. So we did talk about that, in that 2.4 hours per day that you could spend finding your voice and developing your voice. Education is really key. Who's going to light the way for you to gain wisdom? What are you going to study? How are you going to drink in deeply from a true well of wisdom, and not, somebody who's just out there claiming to be a guru? And there's a lot of them. So, you really do need to understand how important it is to really grade your guru, to really have that absolute confidence that the person you're following, before you listen, like, don't just go online and say, find compassion and follow anybody. Start with people that we know are exemplars of compassion. Dalai Lama, start looking for people he respects. Or Jesus, start looking for people he respects. Mother Teresa. There are many, many, many examples of women and men throughout history who have been beacons of light for us to gain wisdom from. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, all of these, even the woman who first photographed the DNA strand. All of these people are people who are worthy of us looking into them more. Now, step 4 is, okay, as a lot of people want to just go right out and say, okay, I want to blog for Huffington Post, or I want to blog for Forbes. Well, before you can do that, you have to become the expert in something. So you're not going to have a platform, or you're not going to find a partnership with these big publishing organizations until you actually have proven that you're the expert in a certain area, or you're at a very high level in a certain area. So developing, finding that platform and becoming, the speaker on a large stage doesn't happen for everybody. And the reason it doesn't happen is that not everybody is going to become that expert. So before you seek out, recognition and fame and, these giant platforms, you have to become the expert. There has to be a reason why people are going to listen to you.
Right.
And then finally, when you're seeking partnerships, you always have to think, what's in it for them? Like, why would they want to be my partner? That's always the way that I went about it. So when I would go and approach someone as a partner, I had already answered for myself what's in it for them. Why would they want to be my partner? Why would Huffington Post want to be my partner? Why would Forbes want to be my partner? Why would CNBC, I've partnered with them on blog content as well. Why would they want to be my partner? So, that's the question you have to ask, because that's the question they're thinking in their mind too.
Well, that's a really, really important thing. And I just want to jump back a little bit, because there is this gap to overcome, right? And when you were talking about the universe challenging you on, is your intention and desire real? I think it was Neil Donald Walsh in Conversations with God says, to know who you are is to know who you're not. And I think he talks about, it was years ago that I read it, but it was a very impactful book, because one of the things that he talks about in the book is, just as you're stepping into it, you're going to get tested. Everything that challenges you defining yourself as who you are is going to come into your space. And rather than rather than, oh no, it's beating me up, it's the universe telling me I shouldn't succeed or I'm worthless or whatever the self-talk is that gets you stuck, is like just sort of laugh at it and actually turn it around and say, universe, like, thank you for showing me helping me really articulate who I am and what it is I want. And I can imagine, I mean, because the journey you've been through, you probably got an awful lot of that.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that is, I mean, there's a couple of, mantras that I use to, and by the way, as you journey up the path, you find that you need those mantras less and less and less, because I mean, you still need them. You're still going to find challenges, and those challenges are going to be sometimes, I mean, for the you that you were in the beginning of the journey, they would have been daunting. You couldn't even imagine that you'd ever be able to meet the challenges that you meet 20 years into the journey. And 20 years into the journey, you kind of look at it and you laugh a little bit like, oh, is that the best you got? But early on, it is important to have those empowering mantras to be able to stop. But I always, and again, I try to use a lot of examples in the gratitude game. So I just want you to know, it was a chapter a day very specifically, because every single day of the gratitude game, we start off with a mantra. So I actually want you to start off that day. And each of the mantras are intended to be empowerment mantras. Of course, what I'm trying to do in my books is financial empowerment, but financial empowerment, as we've talked about, allows you to have the life of your dreams. And for me, that is a life of compassion, and that is a life of social commitment. Mainly sustainability and financial empowerment for Main Street. So many of the mantras are in the book. So like, as one example, yes. Have you ever tried an entire day where you did not allow yourself ever to go into no? One day. Just try it for one day. So every time you're met with something that is a negative experience or a negative feeling about yourself, or negativity, even someone maybe road rage cutting you off, where you don't allow yourself to go to the negative, where you switch it into the positive. Like, every single negative emotion that you have has a companion on the opposite side. So hate, love. And if you see yourself pointed towards the negative side, all you have to, it's actually a really beautiful mind exercise to say, okay, I'm feeling hate right now, or disdain. The opposite of that is compassion and love. Okay, so you start there, and that's basically turning your body and your mind 180 degrees in the opposite direction and walking in that direction. There are many mantras that can get you there. Gratitude, how do you, like, a lot of people, I've even consulted with very well regarded and well-known spiritual leaders. And when I start talking about financial empowerment, a lot of them are very underpaid. So especially if they're a spiritual leader in a big city that's expensive. What if you were a minister living in San Francisco? Well, only 10% of people who actually live in San Francisco can afford to buy a home there. So obviously this minister who's on the lower end of the pay scale is going to have a problem, right? So this minister, as much as and it was a man, was teaching compassion, and on the stage every Sunday and every Wednesday talking about these things. When I would talk to him privately about financial empowerment, he would almost seethe. And the reason for that was because he was buried in it. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't find a way out of it. How can I feel gratitude, Natalie? He would say. And the feeling he was absolutely having was not gratitude. And I said, you start always, like, gratitude, like happiness, isn't something that you can will into being in your little mind. Happiness is a journey. It's an outcome of doing a lot of things that you love that bring you happiness. Gratitude is an outcome feeling. How do you get there? You start by counting your blessings. And so what if you have one full day where every time you start feeling anything negative, all you do is just count your blessings, and literally one by one, Today, I'm super grateful that we're getting rain. Today, I'm super grateful that my son is doing so well in his life. I'm super grateful I have a fantastic son and he's so healthy. And as you do that, all of a sudden, those little problems that were gnawing at you, are really, they start receding in the distance. So as you walk towards that beautiful side, like I said, every negative emotion you can imagine has a companion in the light. And as you just switch your thought to the companion in the light and think about those things and express those things and do those things, the negative becomes farther and farther away. And so you're warning that that you need to switch your attention is always the negative emotion.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent, excellent wisdom. In fact, I'm racking my brain because there's a beautiful book which I cannot remember the name of the title or the author, but hopefully I will remember it by the end of this call. So I'm sort of putting a, no pun intended, a bookmark here so that I can come so I can come back to it. So I think that a lot of our technical issues have now been worked out. And so you had shared with me, and I have here, I hope, a wonderful video with Alvin, Jada, and Satori Tam about a trailer from a film that you're in the process of doing called Earth Gratitude, I think. Is that the full name title?
Yeah, that will be the feature-length documentary. And this is just a 4-minute teaser that we did for the Earth Gratitude Project this year.
Okay. Okay. Our hyperlink, of course, is not completely working. So we're going to jump to this in 1 second. I need to get us here. And hold on. Let's see if I can do this. Da, da, da. Before I do this, while I'm working on the technical end of this,
Yes.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about the story there?
Yeah. The Earth Gratitude Project, first of all, I want to tell you about. So you can go to earthgratitude.org. And the Earth Gratitude Project was born really about 2002. So I was attending all these economic conferences and empowering Main Street people to learn more about their finances, to stop making everybody else rich, and to, have the ability to earn money while they sleep and protect their assets. I mean, a lot of people really need to know how to protect what they have better as well. But at these economic conferences, believe it or not, and these were big ones like, the Milken Global Conference, that sort of thing, there were the climate scientists were already starting. So Stephen Chu, who ended up becoming the Department of Energy Secretary under President Obama, he'd won a Nobel Prize in physics, and he was already warning everybody, look, we really have to address climate change, and here's why and here's how. And there were a lot of people that were just trying to dream up projects, and some of them were really true, like the Tesla. And others, like there was a Zappy company that was going to make a concept car that was going to compete with the Tesla. Well, I had ridden on a Zappy, and I knew that wasn't going to be happening. So what I began doing was thinking that I should go around the world and test these sustainability projects firsthand, so that when I did report on them to everybody, that I would be coming from a place of knowledge. And so that led me around the world, meeting with the Prince of Wales. I got to tour his properties, meet with his head gardener, meet with his home farm manager, and really see all of he's one of the visionaries of sustainability, FYI. He started his organic farm in 1970s. Yeah. So Prince William and Prince Harry grew up on an organic farm. And all over the world, really, the first platinum LEED rated home in the United States, the first platinum LEED rated building in Europe, the green skyscrapers in New York, just all over the world. And in the meantime, I also have been mentoring, a number of individuals in their own personal lives. And Alvin and Jada had come to me about a decade ago to start out. They were small business owners. They didn't feel like they could put into an IRA or a 401k. They didn't own their own home. So over the course of mentoring them, they bought their home. Their home doubled in value. And now they're launching into really finding their own voice and taking very brave steps. So I think they're a very strong example of all of those 5 tips that I just gave you. Every tip that I just gave you, they did right. They started out by lightening their load. they just started into charity. They actually formed their own yoga community at the top of Whole Foods Market in Las Vegas. They educated themselves. They learned that they believed in my teachings. They were, knew that I had a PhD in results. So they graded me first, and then they started following my work. They became the expert in what they were doing. And then they began forming partnerships. So this exact film is a partnership between Jada and Alvin and Satori, who are the Barefoot Sanctuary and my Earth Gratitude Project, which, we're in partnership now. So I hope that we're ready for it now.
Absolutely, we're ready. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go.
I believe there's a respect that comes from that type of experience that grows when you see yourself no longer as a user of a resource and more as a partner of your surroundings, of your nature.
The regal connection that we are cultivating now in our life for the sake of our child and the children of the future and our inherent connection to the earth is the kind of connection that keeps us awake, alive, integrated, and one with our natural environment. What is our why? Why would we leave the most fantastic plastic city in the world to be immersed in the wilderness? What is that story about?
When we left Las Vegas, we set out on a journey to very much an unknown place. We knew in our hearts that living in Las Vegas, living in a big city, any big metropolitan city, was not the right way for us to express our values. Our values had changed. Inside, we felt that it was the time to seek out an experience that would truly teach us about living with our world in harmony.
So as much as Las Vegas was fun and exciting and full of opportunity as a performing artist, as a yoga teacher, a dancer, it was time for something new, and it was time to evolve and to come into a new way of living. Fortunately, we had a lot of opportunities there in Las Vegas, working with celebrities, Alvin being a performer with Cirque du Soleil for so many years. Very grateful to have had that experience. And the evolution of our path and our journey in raising a child really started to show us that there was something more and something missing.
What it really is a teaching that reminds us that we are really in partnership with nature. We are partners with the environment. We are just one of many elements of this world.
There it is!
Yes!
absolutely beautiful it is. And, you know, and I love this ending too, because she's struggling. You know, they took a jump, they did the work to find their voice, to live their passion. And obviously, it's, you know, this little piece at the end with breaking the wood, we've got to do that. And she's working hard to literally chop the wood for her to manifest her vision and her dream. And I find
Yep.
it so powerful. So hold on, your audio has replaced the film video. Oh, okay. Thank you for that. I didn't know that. Okay, so if, as you all can see, I think in the chat, if you go to earthgratitude.org, you can see it without my audio. I apologize there. So moving forward, let's see where. So could you hear any of that?
Most of it. It was only towards the end where.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Well, I was going to say, I'm sorry you got to watch a beautiful visual without sound. Okay. Anyway, so eh, moving forward, when we talk about our voice, where do you think the best place is for somebody to start? They have a vision in their heart. I know you've pointed out the 5 steps, but is it to just go go find a blog and comment? What?
No, I think that going to find the blog and comment is going to be step 5. So step 1, I think, is, and again, these don't, steps 1 through 4 don't happen in order. They happen simultaneously. So, you know, you want to acknowledge where you are now. And like I said, if you feel super empowered and like your basic needs are covered, then you're ready to go to steps 2, 3, and 4. If not, then you have to really acknowledge that you need more information on how to increase your income and decrease your expenses. And know that it's not a matter of cutting out cafe lattes and avocado toast, that there really are better solutions out there. I would recommend the ABCs of Money at minimum. That's my second book. Step 2 is going to be, how do you discover your unique voice? So you really need to make sure that you're doing 2.4 hours per day discovering your unique voice in your passion project. So part of that can be actually physically networking with people, doing charitable giving. And I recommend, like, a lot of people will say, oh, I have 100 different charities that I love, so maybe I'll just write a check for, you know, this blah, 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 and I'll spread it all out because I don't know which one I really love the most. Well, you know, when you do something like that, then you don't have the power to really develop. Like, if you spread yourself out between 100 projects, you're never going to become the master of one. So what I would always just recommend doing to select a project that you're going to do for the next 2 or 3 years and give at the highest level so that you are in partnership at the highest level. So if Charter for Compassion is something that you're most interested in, then take on a bigger challenge than you normally would. You know, and go all in. Say Charter for Compassion is going to be my charitable giving. That's where I'm going to be exercising and finding my voice. And start doing that in partnership with your people. Education then is step 3. So how are you going to gain the wisdom so that you can become the expert? So who's going to be your mentor? Who's going to be your way shower? Who's going to light the path for you? Then as you start becoming the expert, you have to realize that there is a pathway to wisdom. Like, you can't just buy a ticket to China and expect yourself to land on the ground and speak perfect Chinese. You really are going to have to start learning. Okay, so the pathway to wisdom in anything starts with things appearing like gobbledygook to you, like you have no freaking clue. And then as you start learning, all of a sudden you start, oh, this, like, flashes of insight. Oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. And then as you start seeing those flashes of insight, then it starts looking more like a complete picture to you. And you're developing the knowledge that's necessary to become the expert, to become the master. And the only way you actually get to wisdom is by practicing knowledge. So that pathway from gobbledygook to information to knowledge to wisdom is a pathway that you have to travel before you can become the expert. And you should not start blogging or attempting to blog until you're the expert. And by the way, you should actually be very wary, because there are plenty of people out there who have no business blogging, are not the expert in anything. And in fact, the things that they're sharing are not wise at all. And if you just listen to it and follow it, then you're either, the best case scenario is that you're going to chase your own tail. The worst case scenario is that you're going to be led down a path that's going to cost you dearly.
Right.
And you should not be that person. You should not be that person. You should not be that person who wants to blog before they become the expert. You should be absolutely positive that the wisdom that you're sharing is something that's going to enhance someone's life before you blog about it. And once you get to being the expert, then you can start developing that platform.
Right, right. That's so it's such a relevant topic, because to your point, there's so many people out there that think they have the answers, and especially there's a whole area of become your own boss, and in 6 days earn a 6-figure for salary and whatnot. And it's really painful. I've watched a number of people buy into this, no pun intended, and it's heartbreaking, because they spend a lot of time and effort and get no results. So I think that that's really important. And while I know this is not about your promoting your financial literacy books, because we have just been talking about it, and these become rich quick schemes, I'm going to really encourage people to check out your books there, because you do have huge wisdom in there. And it is work, and especially in the world of compassion and healing and alternative ways of looking, there is a what I'll call very woo-woo spectrum that gets a little bit lost in, to your point earlier, the meditation without doing the work. And there is an element of work. It's not easy. You got to bring it down into the 3D world. So I'm glad.
Yeah, and I do want to say it's work until it's not work. Like the goal is that it's not work, but the only way that it gets to be where it's not work is by practicing it. And as you said, there are a lot of people that can, like church for them on Sunday ends right after church. Like the minute they go back out into the real world and they've learned all about peacemaking and compassion and all this, or whatever your church is, whether it's meditation or whatever. And the minute they step into their car, they become speed demons and, cutting people off and that sort of thing. So, embodying the things that you're teaching at the Charter of Compassion requires an active work. It requires action. Like compassion is an action word. It is not something that you do in your living room reading about it. It's when you interact with people that you are able to show compassion. Compassion requires action.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I love that you call whatever your vision for yourself or finding your voice an aspect of your passion as part of your passion project, because, suddenly, I want to become whatever I want to become. That's my goal, to be the best leader in my field. That can sometimes feel like a heavy responsibility that can actually work to prevent you from moving forward, because maybe you have a lofty vision and the vision is very bigger than where you are today. But if you instead say, I have a passion project that I want to do, and it's to become a leader of whatever, but I'm going to work my passion project, that feels very manageable and very engaging. It's awakening rather than shutting one down. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know, like it's really interesting because a lot of people will say to me, how did you become this or that #1 stockbreaker, best-selling author, blogger on Huffington Post and Forbes and that sort of thing. By not thinking I never set out that goal for that goal. I set out for the goal of making sure that Main Street could get ahead, like nobody would be in the position I would be in, where you're going to lose your home, where no one would, or the first bit of advice that I got right after I sold my home and I sold it for a profit was to invest in the stock market at an all-time high. I would have lost 75% of my money if I had done that. Wow. So, I wanted to make sure that nobody else would be in that position, that no one would be taken advantage of. So my goal was a passion project. It wasn't the outcome. And many people say it's the journey, not the destination. I do think it's good to have a destination, but if your destination is to become rich and famous, I just don't think that you might find that that's probably not going to end up the way you want it to, because then you're going to be susceptible to all these get rich quick schemes and this, okay, I have a voice, and forcing yourself to have a voice you really haven't developed yet. So that's what I would say. My goal was never to become a #1 stock picker. It was never to become a blogger or a best-selling author. It was always to save humanity.
Right there.
A bit of a loftier goal, and one that's endless. But these other things that have come along the way have been things that other people have given me, or other people have told me about myself. They weren't my goal. My goal was, is, and remains, how can I empower others?
Excellent. I just see we got a quick drop in. I don't know if everyone can see this. Good morning, Marilyn Turkovich, who is the Director of Charter Compassion. We see your very engaged face. I'm so happy that you could be with us.
So happy to meet you, and congratulations on the huge success of your charter. I wish you, tenfold.
We have about 3 minutes left in this call, and before we switch over to the after party, and I'm also going to put up on the slide, on the screen again, information about our after party, where everyone can join us to continue the conversation and interact directly with you, Natalie. Is there anything, Natalie, that you would like to say in closing?
Well, I just want to thank Charter of Compassion, Lisa, Sandy for making the introduction. This is a great example of how partnerships born, and also how you can have deep conversations at these. Again, I think charity is the best networking. So I met Sandy at a compassion event for another foundation for compassion. And, your people are there, and you can have meaningful conversations. A lot of the networking events that you might go to can really feel like people trying to sell one another on things. If you go to something where it's a charity and your goal is something that's not sales, you can actually make very strong, heart-based, soul-centered connections with people. And I would say that's a very lofty investment of your time, and it pays yield in ways that you'll never imagine. Also, if you want to learn anything more about what I do, go to nataliepace.com. There's links to my books. I do recommend The Gratitude Game as an audiobook because it's easiest to listen to the task first thing in the morning as you're getting ready, because it really is intended to have that mantra all day long. So it really is designed for you to do it every single morning. And then finally, if you are in a position where you want to transform your life, then consider coming to my investor educational retreats. And the next one is October 13th. And you can get all the information you need online.
All right.
At nataliepace.com.
Oh, okay, excellent. So hold on one second, because we have all kinds of things now popping up in the window. So a few things. So we may run over by a minute or two today. First, I also didn't get to thank everybody who's been working behind the scenes with us, and today we have had some bumpy technical issues. So a few things. First, thank you to Sandy Hart, who's been working behind the scenes, as well as Brianna Lathorpe, Susan DeGaia, and Betsy Spano. So thank you. And I know that Sandy's going to jump on. And for those of you who are not familiar, Sandy is the director of the Women and Girls sector, and she was responsible for bringing Natalie here with us. So thank you, Sandy, for bringing this awesome voice. And there are a few more things that I want to go over. So Sandy, did you want to?
Yeah, just briefly. First of all, thank you, Lisa, for a wonderful interview. And Natalie, I am so inspired. Yes, while I may have made the introduction to Lisa and to this program and perhaps to the charter, I can't possibly begin to think about where I first met Natalie and the journey that's led us to this point. And it's only been a short one and through a series of connecting. But my most profound experience in knowing Natalie was a very dear friend of mine, who I later learned was a mutual friend of ours. As a matter of fact, this woman is a powerhouse. She took HBO from a little neighborhood channel to the big worldwide network that we know it today. So she knows her stuff. She called me one day in the middle of this workshop she was taking. She was on a lunch break, and she said, "Sandy, I got to tell you about this woman, Natalie. I'm taking her investment course right now. And I am already like, I cannot wait to come back again and sign up for it again. And I'm not even through this course. You've got to take it with me." And so, of course, come to find out, it's Natalie. And so, yes, and we will be putting your books up on our website, Natalie. So I wanted to thank you. And I just wanted to pop in and thank you. Thank you for your patience. Yes, we did have a little technical challenge. There were some mischievous energies at play. But your message is loud and clear, and it's an extraordinary one. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure, Sandy. I cannot thank you enough for just, I apologize that we're going over, but, when you're in a room, we were in a room multiple times where there were one time 200 people, probably 200 people almost all the time. And Sandy and I didn't know each other well. And we always found a way, our little soul energies found a way to gravitate towards one another, and then discover this other mutual, connection.
Wow.
So when the universe, when the universe shows you 2 or 3 ways why you're supposed to meet somebody,
say yes.
You should pay attention.
Say yes. Follow the yes. Thank you. I'm so glad I did. Thank you for following the yes too.
So a couple more things, and thank you. That's a really lovely story. I very much value that, because what it also does is it makes you pay attention to who's circling in your orbit, and to really be present in the moment. Yeah. Who's around and whose path. We have a question from Catherine Van and I'm wondering if we should either ask it here or switch over into the after party, which I think maybe we should do, because I'm sensitive, Natalie, to your time. So Catherine, I hope you will be joining us in the after party, which I'm going to put the information up for us here, so that everyone can see it. Give me 1 second.
And Catherine, if you put your question in the chat box right now, I'll also make sure we address it, even if you can't make it.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Oh, right. Oh, it's good you mentioned that, because we will also be putting links to your books, as well as hold on 1 second. As well as, there we go, there's the information for the after party. We'll be sending a copy of this recording, as well as links to your books and other things made reference to in this call. And before we sign off and switch into the after party, I would like to mention 2 upcoming events through the women and girls sector. On July 7th, also at 8 in the morning, you can meet our charter partner, Braveheart Women, with Brenda Gustin, who's going to share how to transform our limiting beliefs, or where we trip ourselves up, in order to be able to better contribute to society. Additionally, additionally, on July 19th, we'll be having the next reaction to response, where we will be discussing another aspect of expressing your own voice and awakening your voice, this time more about how to speak as a public speaker, and be present in your mind, body, heart, and soul to express your voice. So I think that's about it for now, everyone. Any things? I hope that we can see you in the reaction to response after party, which was just up there. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.